In New Zealand, where I come from, sheep outnumber people by 5 to 1. So, of course, any stories which concern sheep resonate with Kiwis, as we are called, very clearly. Sheep are followers rather than leaders, so that when we hear the famous chorus from Handel's Messiah, we should assume that when we, like sheep, have gone astray, it is because we have followed someone who has actually led us astray. Jesus gives the sheep a bit more credit than they probably deserve by implying that sheep will only follow someone they already trust and will run away from someone they do not trust. More likely they will just continue grazing and minding their own business, unaware that they are becoming scattered, until something happens to make them regroup and follow. Indeed, perhaps the voice of a shepherd, or perhaps the barking of the sheepdog, intent on rounding them up. The innocence of sheep is perhaps best demonstrated when a black sheep takes the lead, and all the white sheep follow it without suspicion to the slaughterhouse. Meanwhile, it is also true that sheep come to know the voice of their own shepherd. A priest I know witnessed the sheep of several flocks, having been corralled together, all streaming off in different directions, following the calls of their various shepherds. Quite a sight to see, I'm sure. We obviously have to conclude that those shepherds have their sheep's best interests in mind. It is hard to imagine a shepherd with malevolent intent. We, like sheep, tend to follow different calls as well. Guided by all the variables present in the experience of a human person, we make all manner of choices that are shared by some, but not all others, and tend to cluster with others whose values we perceive that we share. Most of us have many such clusters. Our age groups, the various interests that we develop as grown up, the key kinds of sports in which we develop an interest and either play or follow, professional groups by which we can develop and share information, and perhaps most significantly of all, groups which are supported by our personalities, which can be assessed and sorted into groups, 16 to be precise. There is no blame attached for personality assessment. We are what we are, and there seems to be no inheritance or biological reason for whether we belong to a type that is, for instance, predominantly conservative or predominantly liberal. Now, many, if not most countries, are governed by a party system, with two of the larger parties usually competing for power. We know them in general as being right or left. Some of the characteristics, both good and bad, of the conservative personality are persistence, tenaciousness, loyalty, stability, rigidity, intolerance, practicality, obedience, concern with rules, and closed-mindedness, less open to experience. Many of these characteristics, of course, being positive, although a few are clearly negative. By comparison, liberal personalities tend to be eccentric, sensitive, individualistic, open, tolerant, flexible, creative, unpredictable, diverse, nuanced, open-minded, and open to experience. And once again, some of these characteristics are more positive than others. In community life, there is no reason why conservatives and liberals should not be able to get along and contribute to a harmonious existence, since each, obviously, have so much to offer. Diversity, after all, is what makes us so interesting in the great realm of creation. The fact that every single person ever created has an individual fingerprint and an individual retina signature should be proof enough of the limitless extent of God's creative intention. Because there are approximately the same number of conservatives and liberals in the world, we might assume that balance and harmony would characterize human existence. But, as Jesus points out in this morning's Gospel reading, evil also exists in the world, which he characterizes as thieves and bandits. In his day, as in our own, and indeed throughout human history, that is a pretty mild characterization of evil. We find the origin of the problem in the book of Genesis, in which Eve falls for the persuasive argument of the serpent and defies God's one request of herself and Adam, who, by the way, goes along with the idea willingly. Simply disobedience quickly leads to something much more serious when it comes to their sons, Cain and Abel. On Mount Sinai, God handed down the Ten Commandments, which essentially form the basis for the rule of law in most countries. The Church embellished that definition of evil in the 7 deadly sins. Of course, we all fall one way or another, or to a greater or lesser degree, to lead perfectly righteous lives. But the main problem of the world exists not because of the ordinary or circumstantial weaknesses or desires, but because of an excess of weaknesses or desires. In modern terms, the words thieves and bandits translate into power for the quest of it, the ruthless acquisition of it, the equally ruthless rise of it, the greed and excesses that come along with it, and the brutal means used to preserve a grip on it. Where does the message of Jesus and the Good Shepherd fit into this grim spectacle? We may ask, perhaps, why God does not do something about it. Well, for a start, we are a free people, able to make choices according to our personalities and values, and we often make mistakes. But God actually does do something about it. Where, for instance, are they now? Hitler, Mussolini, Attila the Hun, Caligula the Emperor, and my personal favourite, Vlad the Impaler, all dead and gone and remembered only in infamy. As the Stoic philosophers remind us, nothing is forever. If despots have a legacy at all, it is of what not to be like, whom not to emulate, whose characteristics do not belong in the balanced and diverse society which is God's greatest gift to humankind. Like all gifts, it is our duty to restore it, preserve it, and cherish it. And as always, the gospel shows us the way. Amen.